Norse mythology is full of powerful gods, displaying terrifying feats of power that could make any living being tremble in fear. Thor can make the ground shake when he is angry. Even Magni, the son of Thor, could lift objects that the other gods could not. But what is more terrifying is that these gods have weapons that are equally as powerful. The most famous amongst them is Mjolnir, the hammer of Thor. These weapons are so powerful that even the giants fear it. In one of the stories, one of the giants thought that he could defeat Thor if Thor had left his hammer and the belt of strength in Asgard. That's how powerful these weapons are. So today we're going to be looking at the 5 most powerful weapons of the Norse mythology. Just a quick tip, there is no particular order in any of these rankings, so sit back, relax, and subscribe. Gungnir is the spear of Odin, the All-Father. He is known to be one of the most powerful gods in Norse mythology and is the father of Thor. He has a spear called Gungnir which never misses its target, regardless of his or her skill. Both poetry and visual arts demonstrate this connection is deep and long-standing. It was created by the dwarves, the most skilled smiths in the cosmos. The spear has runes carved on its tip, presumably to increase the aim and the deadliness by magic. Archaeology confirms that the Norse and the Germanic people used to carve runes on their spears and weapons, presumably to imitate the legendary spear of Gungnir. In the battle between the two tribes of gods, Odin led the Aesir against the Vanir. He started the war by curling his spear across the enemy host and crying, "Odin owns you all." The historical Norse also repeated this gesture, giving the enemy army as a gift to Odin in the hopes that the gods would return the favor by granting them victory. In the Viking Age, Odin was the chief of the gods. Before that, he shared this role with the god Tyr. Just as Tyr's sword was meant as a symbol of military prowess, so was Odin's spear as well. Tyrfing is a magic sword in Norse mythology, and it features in the Tyrfing cycle. As described in the legends, Tyrfing was the keenest of all blades. Every time it was drawn, a light shone from it like a ray of the sun. It could never be held unsheathed without being the death of a man, and it had always to be seeded with blood still warm upon it. There was no living thing, neither man nor beast, that could live to see another day if it were wounded by Tyrfing. Whether the wound were big or little, never had it failed in a stroke or been stayed before it plunged into the earth, and the man who bore it in battle will always be victorious if blows were struck with it. Certain stories seem to imply that Tyrfing is capable of deicide, which means it can strike the killing blow to a god. This can be seen in a story where King Heidrek finds out Odin in disguise and tries to strike him. Odin had to turn himself into an hawk to escape the blow. Scholars have not yet come to a clear decision about the origins of the name Tyrfing. Some say it was derived from Tervingi, a Gothic tribe recorded by the Romans in the 4th century. Some say it's the combination of 2 words. First is Tyr, the god of war in Norse mythology, and the other is finger, which is the Old Norse spelling of finger, thus making it the finger of the old god of war. There is one more theory where the suffix ing denotes the ownership of the sword. Just like other Scandinavian swords like the Håking, which is the sword of Håkar, Tyrfing would be the sword of Torfi, although who Torfi is in this context is not known. All the other swords in this list have their own name, but this one does not have any. Instead, it's called the Sword of Freyr, and as the name would suggest, it's the Sword of Freyr, the god of sunshine, fair weather, and summer. The most unique feature of this sword is that it can fight on its own without being wielded by anyone. It is considered to be one of the most powerful weapons in Norse mythology, and it can stand its ground against any of the weapons in this category. However, Freyr had to give it away, which would later have very serious consequences in his life. Freyr marries a giantess, and in the form of dowry had to give up his sword. Freyr readily agrees to this agreement, which would later come back to bite him. The first instance where this would become a problem was when he had to fight the giant Belly. Because he did not have his sword, he had to fight off the giant and kill him with an antler. This would prove to be very difficult, but still he was managed to defeat the giant. But the outcome in Ragnarok would be completely different. He had to fight the fire giant Surtur, and in that he had to use antlers and sticks to fend him off, but ultimately was not able to defend himself and would get killed by Surtur. There are some stories in which Surtur killed Freyr with his own sword. The sword of Freyr is considered to be one of the most powerful weapons in Norse mythology, only because it can wield on its own. There does not need to be any wielder for it to be effective, and very few weapons in Norse mythology can actually do that. Gelpnir is the chain used to bind the mighty wolf Fenrir. Fenrir is the son of the trickster god Loki. It was prophesied that in Ragnarok, Fenrir would be the one that would devour the Allfather, Odin. Although in his early years, Fenrir was allowed to roam the lands of the god Asgard freely, but Fenrir grew very fast. They scared all the gods, and finally Odin had to order for Fenrir to be chained up. The gods already tried twice to bind Fenrir, but they were completely unsuccessful. They used metal chains, which Fenrir was able to break free very easily. Finally, the gods had to call up the dwarves to make a chain that is powerful enough to bind Fenrir. The dwarves made the chain from 6 magical items: the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, the spittle of the birds. And these things are now missing because it was used up in binding Fenrir. Although Gelpnir was as thin as a silk ribbon, it was more powerful than any iron chain. Gelpnir, having bound Fenrir securely, was the reason Tyr lost his hand, for Fenrir bit it off in revenge for not getting free. Gelpnir is said to hold Fenrir until Ragnarok, where he would break free and devour Odin. Mjolnir is the hammer of the thunder god Thor in Norse mythology, used both as a devastating weapon and as a divine instrument which provides blessings. It is one of the most powerful weapons in Norse mythology, as well as being one of the most famous ones. It was one of the few weapons that kept the giants at bay and kept them from attacking Asgard. The fear it strikes in the foes of Thor could not be described. Mjolnir could produce lightning bolts and was Thor's indispensable weapon against the enemies of gods and men. With it, he was invincible against frost giants, mountain giants, hill ogres, trolls, and other monsters and demons that threaten heaven and earth. After being thrown, the hammer would return like a boomerang to Thor's hand. Thor always wore magical iron gauntlets when wielding Mjolnir, as without it, he would be unable to grasp the magical hammer shaft. The Norse people believed that when lightning struck, it was because Thor threw his hammer to the earth. Although Mjolnir could be the bringer of death, it also symbolizes life and good fertility, as because Thor has influence over rain and hence good crops. It would bring blessings to marriages by keeping evil power away from the married couple. It was made by the dwarves, and so it was unbreakable. So Thor could smite someone as hard as he wanted without the fear of breaking it. So these were some of the most powerful weapons in Norse mythologies. In the mythos, the comparison between these weapons are almost non-existent, and as such, ranking them at what position they would be in would be difficult. That is why there is no particular ranking for these weapons. Let me know in the comments what other weapons do you think should have made it to this list. Also, if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button as it helps me out a lot. If you want, you can watch some of my other videos as well.